Alright guys, today we're going to be replacing the lower control arms and maybe the ball joints also, since I have those, on a 2004 Toyota Matrix XR with a 1.8 liter engine and automatic transmission. First thing I want to do, make sure I don't have on something that I want to ruin, any kind of clothes that I don't want grease to getting on. Jack the car up in the air on both sides in the front, make sure it's supported nicely on jack stands. While it's up in the air, I'm going to double check. Everything looks pretty good and tight. My strut's got a little bit of wiggle to it. But then I'm going to get the tire off anyways. Let's go ahead and get that done. Ooh, that's interesting, that nut came apart there. So, get the tire off, set it aside, and let's take a look at what we've got to do here. We've got the tire removed, and here we are looking under the car. This is the lower control arm right here. It has 3 bolts here. Actually 2 nuts and 1 bolt, I believe is what it turns out to be. That's a bolt and those are 2 nuts. I believe those are all 17 millimeter too. Yep, looks to be. And that attaches to your ball joint right here. And if you've got a pickle fork and can get that loose, that castle nut loose here, I think you can remove this ball joint without having to remove this, as long as your lower control arm is already dropped. So I might try to do that. On the lower control arm, I got 1 big bolt right here that I'm going to have to pull out. And I'm going to have to take a look because I think there's a nut on the back of that. If I look at it there, get you guys so you can see where we at. Can't even see. Get my hand up in here. Where the heck? Can't get my hand in there, but I am pretty sure there is a welded nut on the back of that somewhere. Right back behind there. And this has got to come out, which means this engine may have to be jacked up a little bit. We'll have to see. Oh, there's one of my motor mounts while I'm under here. Not too bad. It's seen better days though. I can put my fingers on either side of that, so that front motor mount needs to be replaced. That would help stop some vibrations, I think. So this one is going to be the hard side, where I've got to get this out past this, I believe. And then the back side, there's that 1 nut right there I've got to get loose, where that part goes in. So, and I think those may be bigger than 17 millimeters, that's for sure. Can't get this up in there to find out. So let me see if we can break these loose first right here. Where do you guys at? Right here. I'm going to break these loose first. I'm just trying to get things loose right now. And then I'll try to loosen these up right here. And if I can loosen them up, then I'll go from there and see what I need to do. I'm also going to let's go get the new bar real quick and make sure it looks like the right one. Control arm. Alright, this is my new lower control arm looking from above. And this is really why I'm replacing it right here. If I get this turned sideways, you can look in there and see that's nice and solid through. There are these little wiggle spots right here on the side where there's less rubber. But if I look up in here at that, you can see it looks like it's all gone. If I get my light down here, let's see if I can do that. Oh, I can't see from below because I've got the arm here. But if I were to get in the right spot, I could probably shine a light right through that. That's pretty bad. And that's going to give you a lot of wobble and sway when you drive. And that's what we want to eliminate. So, let's see what I can do about getting these things loose. We have now got this bolt out of here. That's the hardest part of this whole process. And that is a pain in the butt. As you can see, I've got a jack under the engine. In order to get that bolt out, see, this is in the way. This sits down here normally, so you can't pull that bolt out, which is like this long. In order to get to that, you have to come over here. And this motor mount right here, you have to take the bolts out of that, which are up inside here. Then you have to come up on top of the car. You have to remove this box, and I've got it bungeed out of the way. You've got to undo a bunch of clips and wires and stuff over here so that you can rotate this up and out of the way. Getting this to come out is a pain because you got two bolts. See how the motor mount is jacked up right there? I've got to remove two bolts on the top here and two bolts on the side that are 14 millimeter to get that motor mount loose, for us to jack this engine up to get to that. Other than that, the rest of these look like they are fairly loose now. So we can go ahead and proceed with getting those out. So let's get that done. Alright, so we have this thing out of here. Ball joint is in really good shape. You can feel the ball joint down there when you take it off and feel it's really good shape. This is a good time. I've got new struts on it. It's a really good time to check everything else over, and everything else here looks really good. So this was the problem. If you take a look at this center section here, I mean, it's almost broken free. Look at the cracks in that. This piece almost wasn't doing anything, and this will give you, when you brake, this whole thing will shift there. When you're on the road and turns, this whole piece will shift there. So, I mean, and that's exactly what I was feeling. So, this thing was in really bad shape. So, the areas where I have to put the new one in, right in here, I'm going to want to clean those side pieces up. See where you've got the rust in there? I want to take some sandpaper and clean that up and put some anti-seize on there to help make this easier to slide in. And the same over here, where that mounts into. I'm going to want to clean all that scale out of there and sand that down so that this new piece goes in a little easier, because it's going to be a bear to get in. But we got her off, so let's see if we can get started getting this thing in. Alright guys, we are done installing the driver's side lower control arm. Let's do a quick recap on the things that we had to do to get that out. Remove the wheel, remove the two nuts and one bolt on the ball joint, remove the one long bolt in the back where that big rubber portion was on the control arm, and there is a nut on top as well, so you got to back hold that. It'll start spinning on you. and then the front bolt up near the transmission pan. And that's the one that causes all the problems because the bolt is about 3 inches long and you only have about an inch, inch and a quarter of clearance between the head of the bolt and the transmission pan. So you have to jack the engine up. Well, the engine will only go so far because it's attached to the motor mounts, and those motor mounts will only flex so far, even if they are worn. If you don't have worn motor mounts, it's not even going to go as far as mine did. So you end up having to take 2 bolts out of the front motor mount and 4 bolts out of the driver's side motor mount. There's 2 on the side of the wheel well that you can get to from below, and 2 on top that you have to get to from above. But to get to those, you have to remove the breather box. So I've got the breather box back in here. Let me give you a little, I told you we had to remove some hoses. Let me actually point those out so you'll see what we're talking about. So this is the breather box here. Get my light so it's not killing us. And there's this electrical clip right here that you have to remove. There's an electrical clip right there that you have to remove, and they're just simple push tabs. There's a hose, this one with a green thing attached to it right there, that you have to remove, and it's just a pinch clip. There's another one right back there that you have to remove, that's a pinch clip. And then down below, there's going to be one more, whoops, sorry, down there, I can't get the right angle, but right down there, that you have to remove also, and it's just a pinch clip. Of course, these just have the tabs that you pull, but and you have to loosen this up, which is rusty, which could take a bit, so that you can pull this hose off, and then you can pick this whole piece up and set it aside. Then the lower control box has 3 10mm bolts on the bottom. You got to be careful with those. One of mine actually broke off because it was rusted, but it holds really super firmly with just 2, so I wasn't worried about that. From there, on this end, there's an inlet tube. Your cold air supply comes in from the side underneath the wheel well here into here, and there's a tube you've got to remove so that you can pop this up. There'll be a piece still attached on the bottom down there that's all rusted, you can see. That's fine. All you got to do is pull this up out of the way, and then I bungee corded it so it was up out of the way, and then you can get to the motor mount down there that has, you can see one bolt just kind of sticking off to the side. The other is directly up under the breather box. But you have to remove all of that in order to jack the engine up by putting a couple of boards underneath that transmission pan there and gently lifting it up with a jack. But you've got to remove all of that to get to that. It's not difficult, but without knowing about that, you have to sit there and take the time to figure it out. Since this is the first time I've done this, it took me about 3 hours to go through carefully looking at things and figuring it out before I could get it loose. If you know that it has to be done, you can do all of that ahead of time. Save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of time over having to dink around and figure it out later. And that'll make this whole project a lot easier. Once you figure it out, if your motor mount bolts aren't rusted completely or something, and they come off, they should come off pretty easily, actually. This is a 2004 with 219,000 miles on it. And, some spots are pretty rusty on it. And it has had a front-end collision. It looks like somebody hit a pole of some sort with it at one point in time, a long time ago. Even given that, all the bolts came out really easy for the motor mounts. So hopefully yours do too. If that's the case, you only have literally 15 minutes of prep work to do before you can start working on that control arm. So that's not too bad. Now, we're going to move over to the other side and get that one taken care of. There shouldn't be all that stuff in the way over there, so hopefully things go a little bit quicker. Putting the tire back on. We just ended this project a little bit early. All the bolts I was able to break free with no problems. They were pretty easy, except for the one on the front end of the control arm. Let me grab the control arm, the new one here. If you take a look, up here, there's a bolt that goes in from the front of here to a welded nut on the back. This is actually inside the subframe piece back here where the nut is. The head of this bolt was pretty tight in there. It didn't want to come out. So I got a little cheater bar on my breaker bar, and it felt like it was coming pretty good. I just couldn't get enough leverage because it was up inside the wheel well at an odd angle for me to pull. So I had a bent pipe I was able to get up on there, and it felt like it was coming off pretty easily. I didn't feel like I was putting undue or unreasonable force on it. And the head of this dang bolt sheared off. Now, there's your metal piece that goes on each side of this that this sets down inside, and the bolt head is still there. You've got this holding it, you've got your strut up, and this is encapsulated inside a little holding cage that bolt runs through. So at this point, since this is kind of a beater car anyway, I'm going to have to run with it like that and just keep an eye on it and see what happens. We'll ask around and see if there are any shops around here that specialize in bolt removal. But if I got a bolt that big, I don't know, unless they've got some specialized hardened drilling bits that they can drill that thing out and retap it. I don't have high hopes for it. So I think we're going to have to live with it the way that it is. And, just go with that, I guess. So I'm going to drive it for a while and see how it acts. I think it's going to be just fine. It's just that bushing on this side that has that wear to it is going to be a little floppier than I would like it to be. The one on the other side was the one that was really, really bad. So replacing that one I think is going to give me a better steering feel. So I guess that's it for this video. Unless somebody knows how to get one of those bolts out easy, some magic trick I don't know of, our little project is over for right now. And I have a spare passenger side lower control arm for a 2003 through 2008 Toyota Matrix, Toyota Corolla, or Pontiac Vibe. I may be throwing out on Craigslist for 20 bucks here in a little bit. We'll see. So talk to you guys later. I hope at least I helped you out on the driver's side portion of that, because the passenger side isn't going to help anybody right now. So that's how it is sometimes when you deal with these old cars. You're rolling the dice to see what happens, and I crapped out on this one. Just a little bit, we'll see. But hopefully you guys got something out of it, and I'll talk to you guys. And here is an update for you folks that might be concerned about safety on this broken bolt. It's been about 3 months since that happened, and I've been watching carefully to see what would happen with this with a broken bolt head on it. And absolutely nothing has happened. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's safe. It's not going to cause any harm or safety issues or anything like that. I just wanted to wait a long time before posting the video just to make sure that you guys understood that I took the time to make sure this was safe. And I'll show you why. The area where that bolt head broke out, that that lower control arm goes into, isn't under a massive amount of stress, because there's all the other components that also take stresses and things like that. It's mostly just a pivot point for that front piece there, and it's encapsulated in basically a rectangular square box that's only open on one end, so you can slide that control arm piece in, and it's like 1/8 of an inch thick the rest of the way around. And the bolt head broke off on the outside of that 1/8 inch thick piece, so it's still captured in there. It can't get out. So as far as the stresses that this place on that, there are no different whether the bolt head is there or not. Zero difference. So, and I did, by the way, I looked at that bolt head, and there was corrosion I noticed about halfway in on the bolt where it broke off. So I think that thing was cracked to begin with. I don't think I stood a chance of getting it off. Pretty positive about that because it would not have corroded immediately after me taking it off. Let me show you what I'm talking about with that captured piece so that you know this is still a safe thing. So this is a little bit of a representation of where that piece slides into. You would have like the control arm would slide into the box right there. The control arm has a bushing on the end of it. That's this piece outside the bolt, the center piece there with the striations is the bolt, and the section on the outside of that represents that sleeve that slides into that bolt. This whole box here has a solid piece on on the bottom, on the top, on the back behind there, and on each end. So it's a box with only one side off, just like a cereal box. If you open the lid, all the rest of the box is completely intact. The bolt is seized down at this end. It's corroded in place. And this bolt, see how the bolt extends through the thickness of that wall? The bolt didn't break off down here somewhere. It broke off dead level with this outside piece. So this end of the bolt is still captured behind that metal barrier there and can't come popping out. That's what the concern was, is what if some stress happens and it forces this bolt to pop out. Well, one, it's almost a 1/2 inch thick steel bolt, so that's unlikely that it's going to bend it to such a point that it would break and come out. And two, because it's already captured down here, it can't do that anyway. And with the bolt head missing, that doesn't change anything. The bolt head just keeps it torqued in place. But this piece of metal right here is what actually gives you your structural strength to keep it from coming out. And that's still exactly like it was. And this end right here it's not going to unscrew itself. Unfortunately, I'd like it if it did so I could put the new one in, but it's not going to happen. So safety-wise, I'm good to go. And that was a huge concern with this because I didn't want to drive it if it wasn't safe either. So after driving it for 3 months now on Michigan roads, and if you've ever been in especially southwest Michigan where we salt the roads heavily and the plow trucks will come by even if there's an inch of snow on the road and take large chunks of road with it half the time, you leave these big potholes. I have not taken it easy on this car. I've driven it like a daily driver car. I take it back and forth to work. I take it out just driving around, stuff like that, because this eventually is going to be my daughter's car. I use it to get training miles for her. She's not old enough to have one yet, just still learning. So I've beat the crap out of it basically to make sure, and it has not moved the slightest bit whatsoever. So just wanted to alleviate any concerns there were over the safety piece. All that happened was the head of the bolt broke off. The rest of the structure is completely intact and completely safe, which is good. Now, I did cheat, though. That bushing, which on that side, the rubber bushing, which on this side was not as bad, not nearly as bad as the other side, but it did have some voids in there where the rubber was wearing out. I took a high-strength epoxy and filled those voids with epoxy to make it more like a solid bushing, and boy, did it make a big difference in the car. I've been running it like that for about 2 months, and it works beautifully. I can't believe how well it works. I don't think I would have preferred to do that. I'd prefer to have just replaced the whole control arm. But, you know, it's a beater car with 221,000 miles on it right now, so I'll do something like that. So, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But I just wanted to take that moment to alleviate your guys' fear, if you had any, about the safety portion of it here. I had the same thoughts. I had the same concerns. That's why I waited 3 months to post the video to make sure it was going to continue to be safe. At some point in time, I may take this down to a machine shop. I think I have an idea, if I cut a portion of that metal out, how we can get in on that bolt to remove, so that if I basically cut the end where the bolt head broke off. I think we can re-weld the bolt head to the bolt, heat up the other end, and pull it out. Maybe just cut the whole control arm out to get into that. It shouldn't take that much time for somebody that owns a machine shop to do something like this. But that's another day. You know, it's a 2004 with 221,000 miles on it. How much effort do I really want to put into it? It's a beater car. So, anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys got something out of this. Talk to you later.